back to the second half of our concert. To start our second half of the Wind Ensemble, we're going to play a Ralph Vaughan Williams concert band piece called Flourish for a Wind Band. It starts with a nice fanfare, has kind of a slower B section, and then brings that fanfare back at the end to close. We hope you enjoy our first tune for the Wind Ensemble, Flourish for a Wind Band. So our next selection is a really interesting piece, really interesting tune. It's entitled Shuffle, and it's brand new. It was just finished this past August, and it's only been played, I think, by 2 other ensembles. I think Oklahoma Baptist University and the University of Illinois are the only 2 that have played this so far. So we were part of a consortium commission. So we essentially joined up to help pay a composer to write this piece. So we were in this consortium with 23 other schools, and you can find, I'm trying to find that list of schools, there we go. There's that list of schools here, and we are right here, Robert Morris University, being part of this consortium. When you do a consortium, it's pretty easy. You just, you put forth the funds that they ask to pay the composer. When they write the piece, then for that first year, you get all the performance rights. So the only bands that are allowed to perform this piece this year are the 23 that joined this consortium. So this is the premiere of this piece, or at least our premiere of this consortium piece, our consortium premiere. There's 2 movements to this work, and they're interesting. There's not really a melody. This is a new thing for us. At Robert Morris University, and it's the new way that a lot of composers are writing, where they use thematic snippets. So does everybody know Beethoven's Fifth Symphony? Everybody knows Beethoven's Fifth, right? Ba 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 ba, right? Is that a melody? No, but he writes all 4 movements of the symphony based on that melodic fragment. So it's a thematic idea. So in this piece is very similar to that, where there's thematic ideas, and the rest of the piece is built off of those themes. So our first is, they don't really have titles, it just says laid back yet precise. And then we have our second movement, which is computer-like. And you'll hear a lot of percussion in this piece also. It's very, very percussion heavy. It was written by Ty Bloomfield, who I believe is a percussionist. So there's a lot of percussion parts. So percussionists are definitely not bored back there, are you guys? He's keeping you pretty busy back there. We have drum set, we have mallet parts, tambourine, bass drum, snare drum, tempo blocks. It's just a little bit of everything back there with this piece. So we hope you enjoy our consortium premiere of Ty Bloomfield's Shuffle. So how about shuffle? Yeah, right? And it's a long piece. I think it's about 7, maybe 8 minutes long, but I think it's about almost 4 for each movement. So really, really neat piece, really interesting piece with all of those fragmented thematic things that are happening and passing through the ensemble. We had a lot of fun rehearsing it and getting that ready for you. Our next selection on the concert is 2 Granger melodies. There's 2 movements, so we have the first movement, which is 6 Dukes Went a-Fishin', and the second movement is Early One Morning. Is anybody out there familiar with Percy Granger? Have you played any Percy Granger pieces? A few people? I see hands raising, Percy Granger. It's interesting music, and a lot of it is, almost all of it actually, is based on folk tunes. He went around Europe. He's originally from Australia and studied in Europe and ended up traveling around Europe and recording. Recording technology was in its infancy when he was doing this. And I actually have a CD with some of these early recordings, and you can barely hear him playing the piano and singing these things. But he would go and record different groups of people singing folk songs so they wouldn't be lost to time. And then he would put kind of his own twist on it. There's lots of notes that we say in music rub in this and his pieces. He does all these little dissonances, and the way they resolve is just really, really unique to Percy Granger. So we always call him, I just call him in rehearsals Grangerisms, right guys? So we've got to make sure we bring out our Grangerisms when we play Granger. So I hope you guys can hear some of those Grangerisms come out in these 2 selections. And again, it is considered one work, so if we can hold our applause till the end of the second movement, because it's considered one whole piece. Thanks so much, and hope you enjoy 2 Granger melodies. Our next selection is our march for this concert. This is entitled The Hampton March by Michael Galemo. There's a lot of really good opportunity in this march for shaping melodies and things. The way he built things, the melodies seem to ascend in each of these strings. So we'll hear that we kind of start soft and then build into these melodies. You can hear that melodic structure. A lot of marches, a lot of times we play marches, right? And in a band, we play a lot of marches. And a lot of times we go, oh, it's another march, you know, and we just sort of play through it, right? And so a lot of people think that marches aren't very musical, but there are really a lot of musical moments available in a march. So we hope you can hear some of those musical moments in Michael Galemo's Hampton March. it's our time for our last tune. Since it is May 4th, everybody knows what day that is, right? Woo! It's Star Wars Day. In honor of Star Wars Day, we're going to play a Star Wars arrangement. It's called Star Wars The Marches, arranged by Jerry Brubaker. It has, if I can remember everything in here, it has the main theme, it has the Ewoks March, the Imperial theme. It has, I can't remember what it's called, it's escaping me here. It's from Phantom Menace, though. You'll recognize it when you hear it here. And then it ends with the end credits, the throne. So, a lot of really nice Star Wars tunes in here that everybody should recognize if you've seen all of the movies, at least one of the prequels anyway, and then the original 3. So I hope you enjoy our last tune, Star Wars The Marches, and may the 4th be with you. Here I am flipping through, and it's right there on the front cover. So I'll go ahead and read you what we have here. It's the Star Wars main theme, Parade of the Ewoks, the Imperial March, the Augie's Great Municipal Band, that's the one I couldn't remember, and then the Throne Room to close.